Good morning. Welcome to Investigator News, and I'm your host, Ellie. And boy, we got some pretty good news this morning for you. Um, one of the first ones is cops find a arsonist tied to a tree after three citizens hunt him down. And the cops are saying that made the statement that maybe American citizens are starting to fight back over these fires. That they're finding there are arsonists across the country that seem to be starting these fires, or those being needing to be held accountable for starting fires. And this is a man who allegedly started multiple fires in Curry County, Oregon, was reportedly stopped by three law-abiding citizens on Monday. In the statement, um, Sheriff John Ward said his office received reports of an adult man walking along a gravel road that leads towards Mariel Lodge at the Rogue River Ranch, starting fires. The suspect was later identified as Trenton Smith of Veneta, Oregon. And he said that he directed his employees to contact other multiple sheriff's offices, and they decided to go out and patrol. And all mentioned firefighting, the law enforcement agencies respond to the area with the description of the suspect. Information provided was a witness on the scene that were at two separate fires. The three helicopters were dispatched off the by the ODF, while ground crews, including residents of the area, quickly got the two fires under control and contained very quickly. In the end, however, it was not any of these agencies who initially stopped the suspect. Instead, it was three everyday citizens. Three local residents of that area located the suspect walking along the roadway near the fires and detained him until law enforcement arrived on the scene. It was reported the suspect became very combative with the three residents, and he had to be tied to a tree to be able to subdue him. These three citizens deserve praise for their heroic action. If had not stopped this gentleman, he might have been able to start more fires, and it could have ended up in people losing their homes. The quick actions of getting the fires out was most certainly averted a catastrophe and saved lives, according to the sheriff's department. The total area burnt is less than 1 acre. So yes, uh, but if he's going to be combatant, yeah, they tied him to the tree and left him for the cops. Good going for Oregon and these citizens that stopped this, caught it. They seen something suspicious. They put out the fires and detained the arsonist. Uh, I find that very, very pleasing to the ears, considering we have that oak fire now. And now I want to remind everybody that up around Oregon, Washington, even Northern California, a lot of the fires were started by Antifa. And that's what we're finding out. Very, very quickly, these stories disappear, though. Um, and I think it's a shame that the news media would want to cover for Antifa, but they are some of the causes of the fires up around the West Coast. Um, Food, oh boy, food. Everybody is worried about it. Um, Now the thing with the food that I'm talking about is these plant disasters. There has been food shortages, and they have found another 2,000 dead cattle in Kansas. And now they are taking emergency action to dispose of the carcasses. Now, not even a few days ago, Fed suing three of America's biggest chicken companies um, on the number of heating fronts, that they weren't keeping their chickens cool enough and they were losing chickens and not removing the dead. Um, um, Justice might finally be served. Arrest made after 1,000 hog death uh, rocked Iowa County. These animals and the caretakers initially told the authorities someone had turned off the electricity to the pens, and come to find out it was the owner himself. Um, so we're seeing quite a few There's not only that, but there's another processing plant that closes due to food shortages and over 200 jobs gone. Um, so this is things that's happening with these food plant disasters, and as we heard, 2,000 dead cattle and mass buried in Kansas, and they're going to have to take emergency action to dispose of all the carcasses. Um, and So now we have fire-stricken liberals have a total meltdown over militia groups help feeding families and evacuate residents. The California State Militia 2nd Regiment turned out to help people in Mariposa County after the fire caused 4,000 people to evacuate their homes and burned more than 18,000 acres. Um, and so the militia stepped in and they were taking blankets, they were taking uh, boxed foods. Not only that, they were feeding. And they weren't charging anybody, but the Democrats and their antis got very angry about this and started attacking the militia. Not only that, but residents that were taking the food. Um, One lady even said, "We're very angry. They would choose to come at a time uh, um, in a real crisis to try to turn this into a political move." And she was claiming this was a recruiting effort to block people from helping those in need. The militia member, Daniel Latner, who lives in Mariposa County, said nothing could be further from the truth. They are part of the community. They're watching their own community burn down. And even though a lot of members that came to help, they were spread out. We're all a part of the same unit and what they do. They said there was really no way that they could have really distinguished between them and local residents, but it was one of them had found out, and then it was trying to protect the families from the attackers of these protesters that wanted to hurt the militia and also say that they were hurting the people and not helping the people. He says, we're just getting a little bit of a break, getting our gear cleaned up. We're getting showered and getting ready to move out where we could find a place to help, he said. And then when we did, we are not unsupportive of the community groups and those affected by the Oak Fire. However, it's important we inform community resources that they are a militia. Their control and command structure and their very purpose was only to help the people. It wasn't to recruit, it wasn't to get people to join them, it wasn't to get people to go against the protesters. They said um, they that's not how they work. They act and have people come to them on their own accord. The police department and the residents did say they appreciated the efforts of other private groups and entities that were helping the community. And even some of the other private groups that had nothing to do with the militia, they were even being attacked. And, and they said they want to put a positive light to extend um, uh, to the people around the United States that even the militia or even private security groups or even any group, why wouldn't they help? And if it is their community, it's understandably. But they say these unregulated extremists at a time of disaster just make it harder for not only them to help, but for the local authorities to help and get people moved out of the way of the disasters. So, and that's just it just shows you the mindset, like the ball game, the Democrat Republican ball game. They're having protesters show up. All the money they make goes to um, helping others. It's for a foundation, and they're going to go protest it. And there's no even rhyme or reason for it. They're just going to go protest. It just shows these liberals now, if there's anything that's out there that looks like a Republican party has anything to do with, they're going to go protest. So, um, and not only that, but the liberals really need to watch out because now we got Andrew Yang. He is co-chair of the new third political party, and it's made up of former Republicans and Democrats that want to become independent, but don't like what's offered as independent um, organizations right now. And Andrew Yang, he will co-chair the new political party along New Jersey Republican Governor Christine Todd Whitman, Reuters said on Wednesday. And they said that both are disheartened. There's quite a few. There's more than a dozen from each side, and even quite a few on the independent side that said that has no specific policies. Um, and they said they have no choice but to walk away from both parties that they feel are corrupt. And they're hoping that they can make a new future of the independent party. Now, I don't care on much who is going that way. Um, I would take a look at it. It being a new party, just don't run and jump into it. I would take your time, see who's there, see who's representing your state. And if this is something you'd like to do and not vote a Democrat or Republican, boy, I think they're going to get me for that one. There's this new independent party. So, because I'm not allowed to say the V word. All right. Um, Now, we all heard about Manchin, didn't we? He sided with Chuck Schumer um, for this new bill. And I think he fell for the prescription because it's going to lower the cost of a few prescription drugs, a few. And what I've heard, remember, I've reported to you, it's like 20 of them out of like 200. Now, if they've added more, that's okay. I see this being close to $1 trillion. It is that infrastructure bill that we did not want for the Green New Deal, and it looks like it might pass. Now, they wanted to wait to see. Manchin said he wanted to wait till today to see what was going to happen with interest rates. Um, but then he went ahead and voted. He wants to vote with Schumer anyway. And this is why I warn you guys about Manchin. Now, Cinema isn't that bad, but Manchin, he seems to flip flop back and forth. It depends on what the issues are. Now, he may have gotten Schumer to shave off quite a bit out of that bill, but he has made a promise to us, though, that he wouldn't allow anything to go back through again. So this is only going to be another burden on our inflation that we're going to have to pay if it passes today. So we're going to keep an eye on that. What, Mary? On Manchin? Um, you'll have to tell me about that. Um, uh, Now CNN and quite a few of them, they're starting to jump on this whole climate thing, and now they're saying the Earth is about to end. Um, well, and then we're all going to die. Not well, maybe not today or tomorrow. But from what you see lately, uh, that they are all for doomsday clock. Um, we've heard 6 years, we've heard 9 years, we've heard 2050, 2030. And, the thing about this, folks, is they don't have any scientific proof. And I like this Red State News. Let's see who wrote this. Jim Thompson wrote this. And he says nearly all the media are cooperating with this climate change fear porn. When the hot months become in the northern hemisphere and it's closer to the sun, the temperatures go up. And changes in the temperature reported in the media with an alarm. Now, a few days ago, he said he's seen the temperatures in Europe, and a split screen showed different colors. Although the temperatures were about the same, The replies were swift to point out that other stations reported hot weather temperatures in red, and that this caused people to feel the emotional burn and also feel more heated. If they show reds and yellows, people feel more hot, which they would tend to believe more of this uh, global warming. The problem was a few years back, um, the entire earth was basically one big ball of fire. Everybody was all heated up. And of course, these climate deniers, they say, are they're calling us cowards. And what he said that what happened to like 5 years ago when we should be underwater? Some of us even said that there was the ice caps were melting at alarming rates, which they are. It is warming up, and they are melting, not at an alarming rate. And they were saying that most of the East Coast and Florida and half the United States would be underwater because the oceans are rising. Well, now, according to this article, you don't hear about um, the carbon footprint of, or you don't hear about the oceans are rising as much anymore. And they said because that was during global cooling. And so this guy says, this is AOC. She famously told him that with Greta, um, that the oceans were rising due to global warming. And this was just a couple of years ago. So now they are trying to say, since we're having these cold spells in the middle of the heat spells, that this is now global warming or global cooling. I'm sorry. And what have I been telling everybody? This is volcanoes. When volcanoes erupt and they put the ash in the air, then it cools our temperatures down approximately 10 degrees. Now, and this is what this guy's saying too. And he said, so when now that they're asking a lot of mainstream media like CNN or Politico or ABC is even questioning, so is the Weather Channel, that they're asking them for their scientific data. Well, what they're sending them is TikTok and Instagram, uh, people talking about the climate. And they said no. They once again got hold of them and said, we need to know the truth of climate change. And of course, all they're saying is that it's the emissions and the pollutions that's causing global warming. Well, um, so every time you confront these people, um, they tend to have a new policy, a new reasoning, a new logic to what's causing the climate disasters, climate change. Well, how about it's just simply the weather? What happened to El Nino and La Nina? They got rid of those when they started bringing in global cooling. And I was saying, no, this is just La Nina or El Nino. Whatever happened to that? And I sent an email over to the Weather Channel and I said, whatever happened to El Nino and La Nina? That was a big thing every year. You would tell us which one it was, and we'd know if it was going to be really wet or if it was going to be not so wet and a little drier. And I got an email back, thank goodness, from them. And they said that because of climate change, it was more scientific to use climate change than it was El Nino or El Nina. And then lo and behold, they brought it back this winter. So, what it's basically telling you, we are polluting our world, but the earth seems to heal itself, according to this red state guy. And it's not going to destroy the earth. It may cut the population down for those that don't make it through droughts or the starvation of the foods and the crops not being there, or they could die from the heat. But they said with the way that people are now and more conscious, they tend to stay in air conditioning or the fans or get into cooler waters during the summer and the summer heat. And in the wintertime, it's just the opposite. They try to keep the snow out from around their houses. and try to let the winter sun come through their windows to heat everything up. And we have heaters. So it's not going to be necessarily this destruction that they're scaring everybody with. And even CNN's climate correspondents are now saying that, um, you know, we probably won't be wiped out by climate change. Just like, forget about the silly giant meteor that wiped out all the dinosaurs, because we're not seeing that. They said even with an increase, um, it's predictable. It's very predictable because the weather and scientific form goes up and down, up and down. And even a couple hundred years ago, it was hotter then than it is now. And the people did make it through it. And they didn't have the ACs, the heaters, like we have. Um, and they said the planet presumably will still spin around, and we're still going to have the sun, the moon, and the stars. And that basically the Democrats and their climate, these climate junkies. I don't know how else to put it, because he puts it a different way and I can't say it. So these climate junkies saying that we're all going to die is just their line for a political purpose. And that when you ask them, well, even if the climate does hurt quite a few people, it'll never hurt the plants and the animals and the bugs and so forth, Mother Nature. And they said, oh, yes, it will. And it'll never come back. And, it's going to scorch the earth, and it's not going to come back, and pollution and whoever this was, and I get the feeling it was AOC. Uh, well, this guy turned and looked, and he says, really? Because, after a fire, everything comes back so beautiful. Everything springs up. And he said, even when the volcano burst at Mount St. Helens, there's still fresh wildlife coming up out of the ground. Now, how do you suppose that happens? And they basically hit him. Whoever it was hit him and kicked him out of wherever they were, wanted him to leave, pushed him out the doors, and told him he didn't know what he was talking about. But it is true. It is very, very true, folks. If you look at when we have fires, Mother Nature does come back just as beautiful as it was before. So, um, uh, oh, yeah, and we don't know what Mother Nature is going to do to us this winter, especially with all these volcanoes. There's a good possibility we'll have one of the hardest winters ever. Now, think of a couple of years ago. It was up in the north that we seen, what was it, 5 to 8 feet of snow, and they said it was the worst ever. Well, where was global warming then? Um, and they didn't have no reasoning for it. They said global, oh, that's global cooling. No, and then it was global warming. Well, now it's changed the global climate. Well, what happened to the cooling and the warming? And see, they fix it around with what they want. It's just like what this administration is doing now. When the word isn't right for their explanation, they'll change it to something else that fits. Um, you know me, folks, I'm not falling for this global stuff, this global climate. I think that Mother Nature heals itself, and we just deal with what we get. Every winter and every summer. And this is a very, very hot summer, but it is not the hottest. I've seen it hotter here um, in the summers in the 80s than I've seen this summer. Normally, it's 2 to 3 straight weeks of over 100 degrees. We're seeing 100, maybe a little bit below, but we're not seeing 100, 105, 110 for 2 weeks with a 130 heat index. We haven't reached that yet. So how could it be a hotter summer? It might be for some, but I really believe it has a lot to do with the volcanoes that are flowing. 90% of our volcanoes are active, and it will cause our climate to go one extreme to the next. It really will. Whether it's the ones in the winter that'll make it colder and more snow, or um, make the earth become warmer because we've got so much lava flow. And we were dummies when we decided to frack and drill into the sides of volcanoes. So um, anyway, so just something to think on. And now we're starting to see, like I said, CNN, Politico, ABC, the Weather Channel, they're all starting to want to see the scientific data for their reasoning for this climate change. Not only that, but I believe they're now looking at it just on, we have had the best clean um, oil, coal, and gas in history. And we should have been able to keep it and have it be sustainable and make it even better. With the technology we have, we could probably have some of the cleanest fuel in on the globe. Everybody was looking to us for it. I'm sorry. So anyway, I want to move on because I've got quite a bit of news, and I didn't want to stick on climate for too long. So, um, the Senate report just came out. I believe this was yesterday. That the Federal Reserve an espionage effort to undermine the United States, and this was the Reserve deciding to interest hike by 0.75 basis points on Wednesday. The former director of National Economic Council under Trump um, and Larry Kudlow basically welcomed their actions, but said it had come sooner, they believed, already in a recession, which he blamed on the Biden overspending and infrastructure bill. But then he dropped a bomb in the last 2 minutes of the clip. China has infiltrated the Federal Reserve, said Kudlow yesterday. China has infiltrated the Federal Research Assistance. And he said that the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee have been investigating this. Now, according to the Minority Report, headed by Rob Portman, he is a Republican out of Ohio. This was no light probing effort by the Chinese, but it was a broad-based espionage attempt targeting the Federal Reserve connected to China's Thousand Talents economic espionage program. The so as we can see, if so, if you think that Jerome Powell, the chair of the Federal Reserve, would be concerned, he's not talking. And he said they appear to be attacking the report, saying that troubled by what we believe to be the report's unfair, unsubstantiated, unverified in, innuendos about particular individual staff members. But when they showed them the report that they had investigated this and seen who it was, they got very quiet. So the Chinese forcibly detained one Federal Reserve Bank employee on 4 separate occasions during 2019, trip to Shanghai, and threatened the individual's family unless the individual provided them with economic information and assistance, and allegedly tapped the employee's phones, computers, and copied contact information of other Federal Reserve officials from the individual's WeChat account, according to the report. Not only that, but here we go with TikTok, also was able to get quite a few of their credit cards, their numbers, their family's credit cards, their banking, all from TikTok. And this morning, there is a report that's warning people that in the application for TikTok, it does mention it in the smaller print, that they will take your pictures, your data, your who you bank with, and all of that. So be very, very careful with using TikTok. So the investigation also found multiple U.S. Federal Reserve employees with close ties to the People's Bank of China, while the Federal Reserve Bank employee was held a position in 2017 with the Chinese Central Bank, which was meant for overseas, the top performing talent and directly applicable and advanced modeling experience and insight with China and the U.S. economic monetary policy. It wasn't just one, but it was multiple federal employees at the Federal Reserve Board that their data provided China with ties to the PBOC. Another Federal Reserve Bank attempted to transfer large volumes of data from the Federal Reserve site to, in at least two different instances, to an individual that had contacts with these Chinese nationals. So, as you could see, China was going after our Federal Reserve, and now it's in a report that's just been released a few days ago. So, um, um, but to be very careful with TikTok, folks. And, now we have to be kind of wisen up and look at Powell and see if he's going to do anything about this. Are they going to keep this hush hush and not let the public know? Let me see. That was also with Red State News. Is it only going to be conservative news that gets us out? I think this is very important for the American people to know. And it's why I try to pick those stories that you're not hearing on the mainstream media, is because I felt you guys need to know about this. If we've got China threatening Federal Reserve employees, we really do need to know about it. And China needs to be charged with espionage. So, wow. Yeah, I couldn't believe it when I read that. Here's another one I couldn't believe. Well, I'm going to get to this one first. T-Lob, Rashida T-Lob, and we all don't like her anyway. Well, come to find out, Hamas is raising money for her. Now, she is from over there, from Gaza, and her family is still there. But she is receiving a big lump sums of money from Hamas and Hezbollah for her campaign. After we hear about Dinesh D'Souza and he gives 5,000 or 10,000 too much, and they put him in jail. But yet Rashida, she gets to do what she wants with Hamas and terrorists. So, this one, folks, when I hear about anti-God stuff, it really irritates me. And not everybody's a Christian that watches my show, but the anti-God with Biden administration, it's starting to spread atheism even more, and it's actively an anti-God, anti-Christian, according to Glenn Grothman from Wisconsin. He said the Biden administration is not the kind of it's all the way what he would call anti-God, but the clear majority of Americans have voted for Democrats instead of Republicans in the House races quite a few years ago. Didn't know what they were going to expect. And this is during Obama and even the Clinton years. And they said they started noticing that the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, asking about the State Department's grants given to organizations that spread atheism and dehumanism, namely in Central Asia and the Middle East and North Africa. So, and it was passed. So our own Anthony Blinken is using our tax money to spread atheism in these countries. And I find this very disturbing. And not only that, but look at what they've done to the Christians here in our own country. And when you look, there is a good majority of Democrats that are atheists. So if I hate to say, ask your political parties if, are they atheist or not? I think it should be allowed. And they should answer honestly, because of what we're finding out with this new bill that they want to put into effect. It's one thing for the department to be tolerant of, of beliefs into systems, but it's another to encourage governments to do away with religious freedoms and put in a Luciferian uh, type of worship, and where there's going to be a charge is, and I don't know what the charge is. It doesn't say, but it's basically to empower the atheists and non-practicing and non-affiliated in public, making decisions, such as they say when we read our Bible or we're swearing in on the Bible, it should be up to the politician if they want an atheist or Luciferian Bible, or if they want the Quran or another Bible or type of Bible. And before it, the United States would consider it kind of unconstitutional if you tried to use anything but the Holy Bible. And they said that the State Department now has characterized atheists as a unique religious group, and that these are networks and advocacy groups for atheists that are only trying, they are not no different than Christians that come to your house door to door. And that if they do push their atheism on the American people, it's only doing what has been done to them, according to this article. And according to the Washington Stand, the Biden administration says that grants are meant to encourage religious tolerance to all religions. But the Republicans are worried the taxpayer funds would be used to promote atheism or lobby foreign governments on behalf of atheist concerns. Um, so you have to ask, what does the American people think about this? Well, they don't know. Well, because no one's told them. And I found this in a very small back page corner. I mean, I almost missed this. And I'm glad I did find it. And it's because they said there are not only slumbering clergymen of America, but they're slumbering Americans that just don't pay attention of how the Luciferians and the atheists have grown in our country. And that a lot of the, and I don't want to stereotype different groups, but a lot of the LGBTQ or whatever it is, a lot of them are atheists. And they say there's a good portion of the Democrat Party. When they looked at the Republican Party, they found less than 1% of the Republican Party were actually atheists. So there are some out there. So just so I brought this to you just to kind of open your eyes a little bit and keep an eye on that. Now it's going to be approved of funding for atheists and Luciferians, as well as the Christian organizations. Not only that, they'll get the same 502 3C, I believe it is 502, something along that, where they can get religious exemption for the money that they receive in their churches. So, wow. Mary, I agree with you. This is just wrong. We are based our country on religion, but that's kind of why I put out the show I did Monday night, to show you that it's not all there. Washington D.C. is very spiritual. It's very into the. And I don't want to say all Masons are bad, because then I'll get all kinds of emails. There are some Masons of the 33rd degree that do go off to the Luciferian side. And there's a very small portion of them. And so that's what I was trying to portray on Monday night on Legends of Myths and Monsters. But as we are now looking, we're going to have to share a platform with these Luciferians and atheists as we move forward. And, hopefully in 2024, we can just change things all the way back, and we can cut back on what they're doing. because they're protesters. They're not going door to door and preaching God's word or their God's word. They're attacking people at protests. Um, to me, that's not the way to run an organization if you want it to grow. So, anyway, um, I thought I wanted to get that to you guys this morning. That was with Brett Bart this morning. Um, the Air Force is, oh, well, no, wait a minute, I missed one. Ron DeSantis in Florida is filing a complaint against the bar that held the lewd drag show for the children. Now, you guys remember I did a one of my shows, I had it in there about these trannies that went to a bar, and then the bar was allowing these kids in, and they were like showing themselves to these kids. Well, DeSantis and Florida has now filed a complaint against the bar that did this. And so hopefully in the near future, we will find out if they're going to be charged. I think they need to be. I really do think they need to be. So, um, good for DeSantis in Florida for going ahead and pushing this. Um, and then we have Air Force moves uh, F-22s to Poland in the bid to protect allies against Russia. Uh, they said that this move of the F-22s would eventually be moved into Ukraine if needed. Uh, and I know we've been trying to give them uh, some aircraft and some pilots to help. But this here, Biden said that there needs to be a protection in Poland at this point due to Russia's aggression getting stronger, and that he has attacked Odessa. He's attacked many places right around the Poland border, and also Kyiv. And Kyiv is the big one where they're not sure Putin's intentions of taking Kyiv and Odessa, or if it's just a strike to keep the military back. But since this is going on, and Kyiv and Poland are very close, the Air Force have moved the F-22s to Poland. So now Kim Jong-un, here we go again. He's threatening to use nukes again um, with U.S. and South Korea if we don't agree to his terms. He says those that keep getting sent over to talk to him are a waste of his time, his sister's time, and he's ready to use nuclear weapons in potentially military conflicts with the United States and South Korea. And he said this as of this morning. And he unleashed a rhetoric against rivals that he says are pushing the Korean Peninsula to the brink of war. Kim's speech to war veterans on the 69th anniversary of the end of the 1950-53 Korean War that was apparently meant to boost internal unity. And all it does would impoverish the country. And while Kim has increasingly threatened his rivals with nuclear weapons, it's unlikely that he would use them in first um, uh, on either the military or U.S. or its allies. And they think this is, like me and William always say, the flexing of the muscles. So as China barks, so does Kim Jong-un. So, uh, uh, we'll just have to wait and see what he does. He'll probably send up a couple more rockets and a few of those missiles and over the top of Japan again, or even probably over South Korea. We don't know, to show his muscles and that he's still in there and he still has these nuclear capabilities. Um, um, Now, another thing that came out, and I found this very interesting, is they have now, FBI is starting to turn things over about Joe Biden and Hunter. And they have found out that Joe Biden has met with at least 14 of Hunter's business associates at the White House during his vice presidency. And this is very concerning. And I think this is kind of what Grassi is getting upset about. uh, especially when we have new tapes that have came out. I don't know if you guys heard about it. There are new tapes that come out about Joe Biden and his phone calls with Polanski. I think that's his name over there in Ukraine before the president and those in charge before Zelensky came into office. To you remember the famous phone call with Trump and Zelensky? Well, when Biden was threatening to fire um, those that were going to change things up and get rid of corruption, he offered them $1 million above and beyond to do what he wanted them to do. So he was bribing these oligarchs over there that were stealing the money from the Ukrainian people. And so there's these new tapes that have come out, and I'm still listening to quite a few of them. But what they're disclosing is the corruption, not just of Hunter Biden, but Joe Biden and his family, Jill and his brother, on uh, how he was bribing quite a few of the officials over in Ukraine to for Hunter and them to be able to keep their businesses going over there as they went from Burisma into a bank and then they bought into some of the bio labs over there. So um, I want to listen to the rest of it. The because of it's broke up into different pieces, and there's a guy that talks in between them, and I'm not too sure about him yet. This was sent to me by my reporters that managed to find out about these, and it's just now hitting the United States and also the Biden administration on what they're going to do with these new tapes that have been found. Now, this is under Freedom of Information Act, and these tapes actually came out the same time the Trump Zelensky meeting over the phone, those came out. Well, they were confiscated by the Department of Justice, and the Department of Justice has been holding on to these tapes of Biden that really show that there was bribery going on uh, if they didn't do what Joe Biden wanted them to do. So I'm hoping to maybe put it out there tomorrow morning for you guys and explain a little bit better. Poroshenko. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, William. Have you heard about those tapes yet, William? They've been out for, I got them when I was sick, and then I was listening to them, and then they did try to release it to the media, but then it went hush. And there's very few people talking about these tapes. And it does insinuate that he was in knee deep with the corruption in Ukraine as well as some of the others. So I will get that to you in a little bit better explanation of it tomorrow morning. Um, but I think it's very important because it shows that Trump was just trying to get to the bottom of it and trying to help Zelensky with the corruption in Ukraine on his phone calls. And then what you hear with Joe Biden is just, my jaw dropped on some of the things he was saying. It was basically, you know, you're not going to get your money. And another thing, you're not going to get that extra mill that was promised because you're not going to do what we say you're going to do. And so you could tell there was a little bit of this control that he and Hunter Biden and who else was it? John Kerry's son. And then I think Devin Archer is John Kerry's stepson. And there's a few others that were in on this. And if it wasn't for quite a few whistleblowers, we wouldn't even really know about any of this. And of course, the media is going to play dumb on it. Um, let's see. Oh, Democrats to ban stock trades. Now, get this. So when they decide they're going to vote on this, Pelosi wants to put it off for a day or two. Well, now we find out that Pelosi's husband quietly sold $5 million in stocks ahead of this vote. And what it is vote's going to ban spouses politicians and their spouses and senior staff from insider trading. I'm sorry. And the computer chips that the Pelosi's have bought into, now they're going to have to sell very quietly and quickly so they don't lose too much money on it. But they said they will even sustain a loss of 300,000 for having to do this quietly. So they're still going to get burnt in a way, but it's just really odd that it's not just Pelosi. There's quite a few other Democrat leaders out there that are doing the same thing. They're quietly selling as quick as they can before they get caught up in this new stock ban for insider trading. So I'm glad this went through, and I was surprised it passed um, so quickly, and uh, how Pelosi's husband, and others are going to quietly do this. I mean, they're going to get caught. There's no covering up what they're selling. And not only that, but this was Nancy Pelosi's doing to make it so that her husband could do this and made it legal. Well, now it's going to be illegal. And I'm very surprised that they got enough of the votes to push it through, especially with the Democrats having rule over Congress. But I think enough of them are fed up with what's going on with this insider trading. Um, and so, here we go. Old Nancy Pelosi's hubby isn't going to get the money he thought he was. Now, me and William last night, we mentioned China and South America. And basically, um, it's not just that, but they're going after the South China Sea, Australia, New Zealand, the South Pacific, Antarctica is just sitting there. Um, and they are after that. They want their piece of the pie. And over the last 20 years, they have gained a lot of influence down there in Latin America. And they're still looking um, to the east and to China with open arms. And what it is this Belt and Road Initiative. And so China has become the top trading partner for many countries in Latin America and the Caribbean. And it's the second biggest behind the U.S. for the region as a whole. So Latin America's trade with China went from 18 billion in 2002 to 450 billion in 2021. That's kind of huge. And what kind of trade? They're doing soybeans, copper, and oil to China instead of us. So they cut us off at the pass, and they're going to ship all of those goods to China, and then we would have to buy those goods instead of South America. We would have to buy them from China. And they're doing that with quite a bit of goods. And not only that, but Argentina has agreed to join the Belt and Road Initiative. Uh, that so now, which means 21 out of 33 countries in Latin America and the Caribbean are basically with the infrastructure investment, with 5G, building roads, ports, mines, and something these countries could have never done on their own. So it's been very convenient for China to rush in and offer them all these things. Um, they are also mentioned things like copper or oil in Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile. And not only that, but even the lithium is being found down in these in Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile. And China has made $1 billion investment in Latin American lithium. And it's not just lithium, though. They're able to tap into. Remember, I keep telling you about the resources. They're all going after the resources in these countries, and this is basically what I've been telling you about. And so they're repressing miners in Peru, but not only that, but they're going after uh, families in Ecuador that they feel are polluting groundwater and making them move. And when they made them move, then all of a sudden, the groundwater wasn't the big issue. It was the resources that they decided to dig up. So this is going to be um, something that the United States is going to have to deal with, because we're going to lose all those resources that we get from South America and now have to buy it from China. And this is something that me and William discussed last night, is that they are going country to country trying to take over. And that way we would have to buy everything from China. So would everybody else globally. Um, and this isn't a globalist thing. This is a China thing. Uh, so, all right, I'm going to try to keep going on this. Um, um, China and the cartel. Um, Back in 2013 was when the Department of Justice found out that China was the source of the fentanyl coming through the cartels at our borders. Well, um, when Trump got in office, there was a big slowdown because he was cutting off China's trade of any type of drugs that, or even prescriptions that would come from China that would go into any of the areas where the cartel was prominent. And so now that the Biden administration has gotten to power, they say in 2020, now it's flooding through. Now, according to the DEA agents in New York City, the Division of Special Agent in Charge, that China's organized crime is very instrumental into bringing the entire drug trade to the front and the back end, they say. And that China is the reason the fentanyl is getting into the hands of the cartel. Not only that, but they have shown them how to be able to produce it. But um, as more that the cartels looked like they were ready to produce it, it was like China was punishing them in certain ways, and it's not part of the report. But what is in the report is that um, these chemicals that they are sending them are only to be handled by where the Chinese, here we go with these mercenaries, like we talked last night, that are working now with the cartels, so that it's a 50-50 partnership. So China brings in the chemicals, and with the partnership of China and the cartel, they will go ahead and allow them to make the fentanyl that comes over our border. But for the most part, what their shipments are is the pre-made pills. So um, now they're getting caught up in it. But what's going to happen out of it? Nothing, nothing, until they say once the November election happens, and if the Republicans do take charge in the House and the Senate, that we will see a cut in fentanyl coming over our borders by about 50%. And that's a huge amount that will stop. And that's just because of Republicans taking Congress and Senate. Um, and that not only that, the other thing that they're doing is they're starting to trade out large exotic animals, and they're not sure where the cartel's getting these large exotic animals from, but it's a huge trade. And not only that, it's money for China. Now, what are China doing with these large exotic animals? We don't know. Um, but it's in trade usually for medicine, or Mexico um, um, and making a lot of money. And we're talking Mexico military that are on the corrupt side. And I know a lot of them are anyway, but what they're doing is they're trading exotic animals for certain prescription medicines that they can use for themselves and their family. Uh, and not only that, but they're taking Chinese traders, the ones that are working with them. They'll take them out on extravagant poaching hunting trips, as well as poaching for fish. And they said a lot of what was seen around Australia was all these fishing vessels with their little boat in the middle. And it was only because they had highly priced billionaires that wanted the exotic fish. So, wow. Um, and then today, we are looking at seeing about not only Pelosi going to um, Taiwan. They say there might be an announcement today, but also the announcement with the GPD of our interest. Now we know that Powell has raised uh, the federal interest rate, not very much, but now I'm hearing that we might be looking at a drop um, from what's going to come through. But it's not a very big one, and they say it could be a administration trick that when they brought the gas prices down and they let a lot more ships um, from San Diego and push them through. They work with a lot of the truck drivers. They've been opening up and giving less unemployment to those that's been long term. That all of these may have been a factor at why it may have dropped just that smidgen. And it's only for political purposes for November. So, with that, folks, that is it for today. And we don't have a show tonight, but we have a show tomorrow night, Corruption Files. And if you're new and like political corruption and want to hear about it, come on back tomorrow night for that. Um, and if you missed our morning weather show, please go on back and watch it and share it. Um, of course, I'll be back tomorrow for the weather show, the news show, and then Corruption Files tomorrow night. So please subscribe and share. And we appreciate all of you that watch our shows. Um, and, say a prayer that this atheist stuff doesn't get bigger than what it should be. We're gonna need all the faith and the prayers for our country right now. Uh, so with that, folks, we will see you all tomorrow morning, and have a wonderful Thursday. And get out and enjoy the cooler weather if you're in that part of the country here that's going to get the cooler weather like us. No longer over 100. We're going to get the 80s and 90s for the next few days, and hopefully some much needed rain. So with that, God bless, and hit the like, the subscribe, hit the bell, hit the follow button, and we will see you tomorrow morning. Bye bye, folks, and God bless.